You're listening to How I Met Your Monster, a podcast that explores the introductions to your favorite movie monsters. My name's Zach.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Casey.
And together we dive into the world of horror to find out how filmmakers have introduced us to our favorite monsters time and time again. This is How I Met Your Monster.
Boss, you opened it. We came.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left.
Explorers in the further regions of experience. Demons to some, angels to others.
Call you Meatloaf! Surprise, Sydney.
Thank you for joining us on a very special bonus mini episode of How I Met Your Monster. It's time, finally, to talk about Scream 6.
The moment you've all been waiting for.
The moment you've all been waiting for, especially Danny.
Danny.
Guys, thank you for indulging.
Danny can't wait.
Our very special guest for this episode, Nina Lawrence, had the pleasure of seeing Scream 6 with me.
Very cool.
Amazing.
It's crazy how relationships work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you guys spend time together.
How did those wires cross? That's crazy.
It was weird, though, because the seats were so, like, big and comfy that you were, like, a foot and a half away, like, separated. And it was just like I was by myself in the theater. And, like, it was weird. But anyways.
You're like, what'd you think of that? The guy behind you is like, I liked it. It was good.
But Danny, I think you should kick this off officially because you're our resident Ghostface.
Well, I would be remiss to breeze past the fact that we just came off fairly recently from our Screamathon, which was our 5 nights, 5 movies, 5 screams in anticipation of Scream 6, which was a total blast.
Absolutely.
But Scream has been sort of like kind of flowing through our veins as of late.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to thank everyone for indulging that craving that I've been pushing on everyone lately. Our Wes craving. Yeah. But yeah, we're pretty fresh off of the release of Scream 6. We're still within the first few days of it. It came out this past Friday. We're recording. It's Tuesday. Mm-hmm. We've all now seen it. And yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of wild. You know, as Scream fans, when the first 2 Screams came out in 96 and 97, you got like the 1 year later. Mm-hmm. And then there was kind of a weird gap with 3. You know, pop culture in general is kind of weird with Columbine had happened. So horror movies were kind of like, oddly enough, kind of going back to what prompted Scream to be written in the first place to kind of regenerate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it died. And that was like it. But we did have a trilogy. And then 10, 11 years later, we get Scream 4, which didn't quite generate the love that studios were kind of hoping for, even though it is considered like a fan favorite by a lot of people. You had the original cast returning. You had some incredible actors kind of coming aboard. But then again, dead in the water. It was just fans assumed that was it. And then Paramount takes over the franchise with Spyglass, and we get the original trio back. Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, and with a new crew and this Radio Silence as the creative team behind it. And we have this whole new wave. It could have gone south. Just like, 4 didn't really go south, but in terms of box office returns and expectations, it could have gone south and it didn't. And people loved it. And the return was like everything fans you couldn't even dream of it being as a positive turnout as it was.
Right.
And then literally just a little bit over a year later, we already have a sequel. So it's like Scream 1 and 2 all over again. Mm-hmm. But now so many years have kind of like passed that fans were born in between. So much has happened. Horror has changed in so many ways. Pop culture has changed. And and now was it March 10th, I want to say, technically 9th, we have the 6th entry in the Scream franchise, directed by Radio Silence. And it's
funny you say that too, because I was talking to Nina about this. Kids that are born now, when they're like young teenagers, they're going to be discovering the Scream franchise the same way we discovered like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street.
Totally.
And there's going to be like a whole slew of movies that they can just jump into.
Well, it's funny you say that, because this whole movie, Mindy's character, they always kind of talk about like every Scream movie is sort of commenting on like a grand theme. And this one was like franchise. So like, to your point is like, not only are they going to grow up knowing this is a franchise, they're going to grow up with this sort of like meta kind of understanding of what a franchise in the horror universe is. So it's very bizarre, but very cool. But yeah.
So issues I had.
Yes.
So I knew as soon as the cop showed up that was Quinn's dad. Okay. Dewey died.
Wait, I need to challenge you though.
What?
Already.
Okay.
Wait, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to stop myself. Finish what you're saying.
Why?
And then I will.
Why?
What I was going to say was, it's one of those things where it's so impossible to predict. And I apologize if you weren't even going in this direction, but it's so impossible to predict in these movies, because winks at the camera are like obvious.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, we're so far deep into it that it's like, we don't know what they're playing with. Are they playing with subversion, or are they playing with,
but
like
I
obvious?
As soon as he's this cop that's coming in, I said, oh, they fucking killed Dewey. They want us to think that we're getting another police officer here that's going to replace him. No.
Like
he's Dewey, Quinn's dad. Oh, Quinn's not really fucking dead. I knew that as soon as that happened. Ethan, was that his name?
Yeah.
I didn't know that he had anything to do with it. I knew that the police officer and Quinn. Okay. I knew that. So then they get to the end. I'm not going to lie to you. When the two ghost faces were on either side and they said, we're family, I said, oh my fucking God. That's Stu? That's gotta be Stu. And I was so excited because I wanted so
Can you imagine?
badly. Oh my God, I was ready to scream in the theater.
Can you imagine? But if it was going to be Stu, he would be in Detective Bailey's as like the ringleader, right? He wouldn't be
a sidekick,
the right-hand man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's been hiding basically for all these years, right? So like that would have been, the reveal would have been, oh shit, like he's, but I wanted it so badly to be Stu. And, you know, with the second movie, it was Billy's mom, right? Mm-hmm. So why not in this movie? Could it not have been Stu's dad? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So
I mean, I came into this being like, in part 2, we got like Mother Ghostface.
Yeah.
You know, Mrs. Loomis, my favorite Ghostface. She's, you know, Laurie Metcalf. Like, that's another thing of why I also considered that Dermot Mulroney would be the killer, was simply because they cast Dermot Mulroney. Like, if he's going to be in the movie, he probably wants to be Ghostface. And he would be Daddy Ghostface in like the new kind of part 2.
Yeah.
That's what's so confusing about this franchise. If you're not like up to speed, it's like it kind of is part 2 to part 5, because part 5 was sort of part 1 to the new. Yeah.
But then at one point, you know, they show the TV and they say, the TV that killed Stu Macher. Yeah, if you believe he's really dead. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, was that for the fans to shut us up?
So I like,
or was it like opening that
and that's what I thought. And so I was disappointed just because I wanted, since I knew about Quinn and her dad, like I really did. The whole time I knew that it was them. So I wasn't really surprised at the end. The other issue, this is going to be really dumb, and I already know it, but I can't talk myself out of it. Okay. I know that things happen in movies because they're movies and anything can happen and whatever. I know that things don't go the way they do in real life. Okay. Another reason that I thought that it would have been Stu or somebody that we hadn't seen is because this man got hit in the face with a pan, a cast iron skillet. Okay.
That was Quinn too.
That was
Was
Quinn,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hit over the head with a butcher block at one point. Like, so they would have marks on their face.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not getting out of that unscathed, but none of them did.
I agree with you there. There is like a level of suspension of disbelief that even as like a Scream fan, it's hard to embrace completely because it's like.
So see, at this point, like I figured that Quinn was still alive, but I didn't think about the fact her doing that and we didn't see her. They even could have given her a fucked up face at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we hadn't seen her face since she quote unquote died.
I agree with that.
But I did think that the movie was really fun, and I think that it should have been called Scream 6 Ghostface Unhinged because they were fucking crazy. Right?
Ghostface was unhinged. Yeah. Oh my God. We are like talking about it. Like I forget that like we are about to unpack so much. Like I have so many thoughts.
Well, has there been another
like,
movie where Ghostface just kills, like at that one point, he goes into that bodega and just kills like 3 or 4 people?
Not really.
You know,
I
like,
mean, yeah, because even in a public setting in like part 2, it's still like focused. Like there's a goal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. In this one, it's just kind of like, oh, you're in my way.
Yeah.
Right. We definitely don't see them like making unnecessary kills. It's
Right.
very
100%.
like you are on my list.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was way more uncalculated.
Yeah. Unhinged.
I don't know if that's a word, but unhinged out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I did appreciate.
I did too.
Yeah. Okay. So I should just say right off the bat, I love the movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I loved it even more on the rewatch because my biggest thing was, and this happens with every time I see a Scream movie, is always the killer reveal. It's always so jarring. It's always so kind of hard to stomach. It always feels a little too much. And I really felt it with this one where I was like, what? I was like, okay, I get it. But there's a lot that I'm not able to digest with this. Like the fact that they're all on the same page, that they're all so like on the same level of like insane Ghostface, like willing to just like slash and kill. I was able to digest it more. My only note about the movie that I think would have made me stomach it a little bit more. So first of all, I feel like I could go on and on and on. We could all go on and on and on about like the motive and like the believability. I will say that.
But you can say that about any of them.
Exactly.
Besides the first one.
Okay. The question is like, what is the likelihood that like an entire family would be as willing to kill as the next person in the family? We've seen it before, you know, like I'm sure that's happened in real life. And
absolutely.
Billy Loomis and Mrs. Loomis, they did the same thing. You know, maybe Billy was quote unquote psychotic because his mother was willing to kill.
Oh, you know what I didn't think about?
What?
That makes Sam 3rd generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't think about it.
That's why she's got it in her blood.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's another thing that they're setting this up and they're not going to give that to me. I know they're not.
I don't have theories, but I've been thinking a lot about where they're going to go with the next one because there is a through line with Sam.
I know,
with
but there's
what she's capable of or willing to do or wants to do.
Right.
It's like she keeps scratching the itch, and every now and then she has the itch, and every now and then she scratches it, and you wonder like how hard is she going to scratch till she bleeds, kind of thing. You know, by part 7.
I don't think they're gonna give me what I want. But
I think there's a way that they could open it up in 7 where she is truly the prime suspect, where we even have like Tara suspecting.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, if they want to mirror the original trilogy, part 3 is all about the brother being the killer, Roman.
Right.
Whereas this one can almost be like a riff on that, where like Sam is the Roman and Tara is the Sydney.
Yeah.
But we're seeing it from a different perspective. We're seeing like behind the scenes. We're like, oh shit, maybe Sam is the killer. I think there's something they could play with, and I almost feel like they're setting something up with that, but it's tough to say.
I hope so.
I would love to see in a seventh installment, I would love to see a hard shift in a different direction.
Me too.
I have to say, again, Danny, like you said, I'll start off by saying I loved the movie. It was great. It was a lot of fun. I am tired of the family reveal where it's always a family member or
unless
something.
it's Stu. Unless it was
it's
Stu and
Stu.
his family.
I'm tired of that. I don't know how much more they can do it.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll find a way, but I would love to see, I think back, I had mentioned earlier, like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and those franchises. I would love to see like and they're not, just like you said, Casey, they're not going to give it to me. They're not going to give it to me.
No.
But I would love to see some kind of like other element brought into this, kind of like you go to like Friday the 13th, 7 with the telekinesis.
Yeah.
Is that New Blood?
New Blood.
And kind of bring in some kind of element where it's not just a family member getting revenge.
Well, so I would even like it if Sam was Ghostfaced. I would even like it
You got faced.
if Sam was Ghostface, but we just knew it and we just saw it from her perspective being Ghostface.
That would be
Kind of
fun.
like Freddy turning into the guy on, is it a part 2?
Yeah,
Yes, when he entered
Where
Jesse.
like you're seeing like
Yes.
Yeah.
like the lack, you're like but like in this one, obviously, it would be like the grounded version of Freddy 2, where it's
Right,
like,
and
Right,
you
like
can't
she
help it.
has become
She can't help it.
unhinged, or she's going into manic
Right.
phases or
Right.
something like that. And
That would be
And
awesome.
we just know it, and there's no
Yeah.
reveal to us, but there could still be a reveal to the characters. But I think that it, because that would be something that they have never done before.
Yep. And she could be fighting that. Because it's funny, I was thinking about at the end of this movie, there are like two reads for how it ends. On one hand, Sam has her father's mask and she lets it go. Like the theme is like the whole theme in part 6 is family and letting go. And she literally, lets go of the mask and like but at the same time, she also kind of satisfies the whole running bit of leaving a mask at the end of a crime.
Right.
So in a way, which is such clever writing, like, first of all, like, just, like, so beautiful. The fact that she leaves the mask there after killing Ghostface, and she even dresses up as him, like, she's Ghostface. So it's like, it acts like it's closing the book on that, but it actually is kind of open and turning just more to a different chapter of, and Casey, to your point of like, and Nina too, like, maybe she's entering like a different level, like,
Right.
even like one that she's like, who knows what happened after she killed Richie, then she killed Richie's father, and she's like, she seems to enjoy it. There is a level of like, like a release almost, like there's like this addictive quality to it.
Yeah.
And
Richie's mom better watch out.
exactly. Yeah, seriously. And if they're playing with like the addictive like angle, it's less about whether or not she wants to do it and more about like, can she control not doing it, which
Right.
could be really interesting for a Ghostface.
Yeah.
And the thing, and Zach, to your point, is like, go there, like be fucking, like, that's what I loved about, I would rank the opening of this movie, and like, it's hard to beat 1 and 2. So it's definitely in my top 3.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like give us, just pull the rug out from under us.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
As
that
long
was
as you're
wild.
entertaining, like,
Yeah, that opening
so
kill
fun.
was like, okay, like Samara Weaving, great. But then you're kind of just like, he just like comes out and stabs her, and you're kind of like, oh, okay. Like, where's that big like slash, and then the title card comes on in this, and but then he takes off the mask, and you're like, what? What the?
I know.
fuck?
it's so
they don't do
good.
this. Well, and then and not only that, but the first phone call in this movie was to the restaurant, like to the actual restaurant. The host is
Yes.
picking up the phone, right?
Everything
then
is
you're
like,
like,
oh,
That's not how this starts.
I know it's supposed
Yeah.
to happen, but yeah.
And then she picks up the phone, and it's Ricky, who is her date, and you're like, what? This isn't. that's not how this works either. You know, like
Yep.
it just isn't. But they turned it into that phone call, but not from.
And what's even more clever about the opening is they set up a Ghostface motive and then end it right there. Nope, we're not going to do that. Like,
oh, right.
Which is, I will say, one reason why, and I'll tell you why I was able to digest it more the second time about it being simply a revenge story, something we've seen before. And it's because they did it so knowingly. Like, we have other ideas that we're playing with, but we're still going to simplify it. Like, it's not like we didn't consider other things. And I think that was what I was okay with. And the fact that it kind of opens up this kind of like inner conversation of like, who was Richie's family? You know, like you look at Billy. Like,
why doesn't she know who Richie's family is? That's what I want to know.
Well, they kind of set it up in the fifth one that like they had only dated for like 6 months, but still.
Right, but there's Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. And that's on Sam.
It's very clearly like there's very clearly like social media happening. They met on a Reddit chat room and things like that. Yep. So like, why doesn't? And at this point, we're being ultra safe, right? Like we're worried about everybody in our circle. We're vetting people.
Exactly.
You just murdered somebody's son. You didn't think to like look up who his parents were, and like you didn't have any interaction with his family after.
Well, that's
that
a whole question.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's the whole thing of also like, I was watching this interview with the directors, and the interviewer was asking. They were like, "Well, someone's name is fake, either Richie," and they were like, "Okay, this is what we think." It was so funny to see them not totally sure either. Which is kind of
they just wrote it and then thought about it afterwards.
Yeah, because
they all have different names. Like
exactly.
Richie has a different last name, and then Quinn and Bailey. Okay, so Detective Bailey,
and
they have the same last
Ethan
name.
had a different last name.
Right,
it's crazy. Well, they say that Richie Kirsch was probably his stage name, but also like I'm going to use this as a killer and fake out my girlfriend name.
Yeah.
But then they were like, well, Bailey, he couldn't have transferred to New York with a different name. That's not how things work. Like, so it has to be Bailey. So it's just it's confusing.
But even if they use fake names, to Nina's point, like in court proceedings and stuff like that, it wouldn't have mattered what Richie Kirsch's real name was because you still would have gotten his real family members.
Exactly. Yeah. And the fact also that Gail wrote a book about the events of part 5, she would have dug something up about like those details.
Yeah.
And we're like, wait, Detective Bailey, what a weird coincidence. Richie Bailey, but that was his real name, and you have the same name.
Yeah.
And you keep talking about a son who died.
Now that you bring up Gail
it
Weathers,
was time for her to die.
Stop it.
And she didn't.
So I think that Gail, although I have come around to love her character, I think she wasn't needed in this movie.
No, she's not.
Yeah.
They very easily could have had somebody else find that theater. And that's basically all she did.
They should have.
It's so true. They even there's even a scene where Kirby's like, Gail, you need to go now. We don't need you here.
But and then if she was gonna die,
Steven Tyler.
If she was gonna die, I would have wanted it to happen like with Ghostface, like there, just like doing it. But like the Ghostface gets away, and then like she's like holding on to like her last breath, and like if she would have died then, I would have been like, like bummer.
Well, that's the thing I think, and maybe Gail that's like a big example because she's been alive for so long, and we're kind of moving past the original characters. But are we feeling that need for kind of stakes, I guess, because there were so few main character deaths in this movie? Like there were almost too many fake outs. So like the weight, you were talking about it Ghostface being so graphic.
Yeah, because even Chad lives.
Well, Chad, I have come to the conclusion is that Chad is the new Dewey in terms of he's going to get killed.
Every movie
and then
he's going to get,
he rolls out on a stretcher. Oh, we got another live one in here.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind, but I do. And this is a testament to the characters. I love these new characters. I don't want them to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I loved Randy.
I mean, I want them to die, but I do love them.
Yeah. You need that. You need that, like, you need to have enough survive that you can end the movie on, like, like, there's some hope, but also enough loss to be like, the stakes are still there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even remember Mindy's girlfriend's name.
Yeah.
You know?
It's Annika, but.
Annika.
Yeah, it was Annika. I think, though, that kind of going to Mindy, though, like, they set it up that we expect Gail to die because legacy characters are full game now. And things like that. And so, Gail can just die in the next one because we didn't get that here. So we can still get it later on. And then kind of going back to what we said earlier, like, this was an unhinged piece. So we got a lot of extra deaths.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Like, the fact that Mindy pointed it out was like, okay, then I guess we're not going to get it because we're subverting the rule.
We're like, okay, everybody's going to live. Cool.
Yeah. That's the twist, is that you actually don't die. Because in a franchise, like we mentioned, Friday 7, there's really the only recurring character is Jason.
Yeah.
So it's like the fact that we're this far along in a franchise. And
did you like that they were watching Jason Takes Manhattan?
Yeah.
And his name was Jason. Oh my God. And they did a Jason 2, a Friday 2 reference where he opens the fridge and finds the severed head and the killer's behind him. And oh my God. I love it. Yeah. I love it.
I did appreciate, though, that the clip from Jason Takes Manhattan was a clip from On the Boat.
Yes.
And not him in Manhattan.
Not in Manhattan.
Yes. I would have loved to have seen, because there were a few things like nods, obviously, to Jason Takes Manhattan, which I appreciated. I would have loved to have seen at least one scene on a boat in some capacity, just as like, or even if like the finale was on a boat, like as like a twist. You know what I mean? Like to kind of
like a ferry.
Leaving Manhattan.
We had the reverse. Like the reverse of Takes Manhattan. But I did love that. I think we talked about this during Screamathon, how Chad is very much like the jock character. And the jock character in Jason Takes Manhattan gets his head knocked off. And in this movie, Chad keeps making references to like decapitations. And even like there's like a punchline at the end of like the mannequin getting its head cut off. I was so ecstatic for that. I love it.
Yeah, that was good.
This is kind of a different subject, but I was definitely tense. You know what I mean? Like,
I've never jumped more in a Scream movie than I did in Part 6.
Oh, really?
I actually found this the most creepy and suspenseful. Like, there's one when Ghostface, which is funny because I've seen the clip like 5 fucking times, but like when Ghostface appears in Gail's apartment, that I don't remember the last time I jumped so hard like in a movie. It just like got me, and I was like, yes, I was so happy. I was like, Scream is scaring me. This is great.
I was definitely tense. Like Annika, that scene when she's crawling across the thing, the ladder. I was like on the edge of my seat the whole time. I knew she was going to fall off, but I was like,
well, Danny, you had mentioned that the directors had kind of said like the kills in this movie are going to be like, there's going to be ones where you can be like, oh, this is the movie with that, like where that happens.
Labelable.
And, there was some good little bits in that, like the whole like apartment segment where they were locking doors and this and that and running in circles and then crawling across. That was good. Obviously the subway is one. But
to that point, I would have loved. I don't want Mindy to die.
Yeah, but
I do think that scene would have been so much more memorable if she did.
Yeah,
right.
You know, like, or same with Chad. Both times I saw that movie, I'm not exaggerating in the slightest. I was on the verge. I just got like really emotional. And I think it's a testament to Mason Gooding's acting. He looks so like he's being killed and he's so sad. And like the way they come off of that happy scene with him and Tara, I teared up. And I do like, I don't want you to die, but like the fact that we still talk about like Randy's death. Yeah. Because we don't want him to leave. It's like, that's why it's memorable, is because we don't want him to die. It's like losing a friend or like, so I'm not going to say, you know, docket points for that, but I'm sure.
Well, when Chad was being stabbed, I was like, man, he's not making any noise. I'm like, he's not even yelling. He's just like, go.
He's resigned to death.
It's fine. He's being stabbed.
Like, here it goes.
Go.
He's like, I'll live. I'm fine.
Well, and you know, like Danny, in the other Scream movies, you had talked about like you can tell who is under the Ghostface mask in each scene by the way they like stab or swing their weapon. Like when they're, just for example, when they're stabbing Chad, they're both like stab, 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 stab. Yeah. Right. And like
is
in
it
other times
brother and sister?
They're just like stab, 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 stab. But then like when she stabs Mindy on the subway, it was just like, bah.
Well, she couldn't.
That's so funny.
But in the subway, I think it was, I mean, they had to be a little bit more discreet, you know?
No, but that's a great point.
It seemed like she really liked to go in and up, though. Like that was her sort of MO of killing.
But Nina, to that point, I was thinking I could be so wrong, and this might just be because I love, and I don't know if it's because I love the character, but I love that Dermot Mulroney is a Ghostface killer. I know there's something. It's the same reason why I love. I don't know why I love that Laurie Metcalf is. It's just like I just love it. It's just there's this like grounded seriousness to it, and then they're just like hamming it up. But I like to believe that the killer who kills Jason in the opening is Detective Bailey. And he does the stab, but then you mentioned how like that is literally how Quinn stabs Mindy. So was that Quinn who killed? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I guess I don't.
I mean, like, they clearly all went to the same stab school, led by Detective Bailey. So that might be his signature move, and his children picked up on it.
That's a funny point, but also like I don't think that's completely untrue. Like, if you really think about it, like all right, okay, sorry. I was thinking a lot about like,
if you were going to stab somebody,
how would I do it? No, but I thought about like the believability of this whole family coming together to like commit a massacre. And you just, obviously we don't get an explanation for it. So you just have to kind of like deduce and like put two and two together that there was a lot of planning involved. You know, like we have to be on the same page to follow through with this. So it really actually isn't that far off believability to assume that, you know, like here's the best way to kill someone, you know, like go to the gut, you know, almost do like the Dewey kill, you know, like this is how Dewey was killed, right? And it clearly worked, you know, rip the guts open, and which I think makes it harder to sort of, I guess, like pinpoint who did what because they're family and they're so on the same page with like their goals, like and how to, and the fact that they are, okay, maybe I'm overthinking this, but like the fact that they are ultimately trying to frame Sam to be like the kills should be within the same style. Yeah. But maybe I'm thinking too. Maybe that's too abstract.
I think it's
I don't think it's beyond because they're looking to frame, and Detective Bailey would know like, how. Hey, they're going to be looking for different patterns of X, Y, Z. We have to make it look uniform and things like that.
100%.
Yeah.
It is interesting though too that he's a cop, but they were probably the sloppiest group of ghost faces.
How do you think?
Because they were just like, they were clumsy. I mean, they're always clumsy, right? But they were pretty clumsy. And then, like I said, they went into that bodega and just killed random people, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, you just made me think. So we were talking about how you were saying, like, has Ghostface ever just like killed people who are in their way, basically?
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, did Ghostface ever intend to kill them in that scene? Or was the plan to kill some randos, to plant the mask?
I mean, how
you know
would
what I
he have
mean?
known?
Because they were
They could,
counting down the
but
motive.
Ghostface couldn't have known that they were going to go in to that specific store with people in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Sure. I mean, the writers of the movie knew that, but you know.
I mean, you could argue like maybe they anticipated them going somewhere, but that is such like a blocked off specific setting.
Right.
Or maybe they didn't intend to kill them the entire time until they got to the first mask. So they'd like tease them cat and mouse.
Well,
that's a good point too.
But if they were trying to frame Sam, it wouldn't make sense to go into a place where there could be cameras and witnesses and kill people and make it away, you know?
That's a great point. That was sloppy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Detective Bailey's like smacking his kids around behind the scene.
What are you doing?
Because that must
Get
have
it
been
together.
Because that was Ethan, right? Because Quinn was at the apartment. Bailey was at the crime scene. So that had to have been Ethan.
Was Bailey at the crime scene?
Well, he calls Sam. See, he is the one who gets her to leave. He's like, you need to come down to the
I need you to come down to the station.
Yeah.
But I guess we don't know if there was a time jump between like them leaving and him calling. It could have been like, oh, I know they're leaving, so let me go wait outside their place or nearby.
Yeah.
It's like, did he text his son that, or did he do it himself? And yeah, Zach, we're talking in 90. That was a great way to frame it, of like the uniformity. It's like it is kind of almost impossible to, aside from like unless someone is specifically somewhere else, like in the subway scene, it's kind of hard to place like who is who.
Oh yeah, the subway scene was a little bit distracting for me because I was just trying to look at everybody else and their costumes.
Everybody else's costumes, see who you can find.
Yeah. Which I liked the Ready or Not costume, you know, the Samara Weaving.
Yeah, there was some good ones.
A lot of horror fans on that Halloween in New York City subway.
Yeah,
like on 96th Street for some reason. Really uptown.
Would you ever be on a subway train that packed with everybody wearing a costume? See,
well, what's funny is I remember there was this one New Year's Eve where we went out, and it was truly, it looked like that, where just walking down the steps, you were like, there's so many people. But it was New Year's Eve, late night, and it was like Greenwich Village. Like it was like the center of like where the bars where everyone was going. They were on the 96th Street stop, like around Harlem. It's like, what? Like there's people up there, but like not that many people. It's not like that. Which is just a funny little observation.
That's funny.
So I do need to throw out a shout out to my favorite. We'll put Bruce Springsteen off for a second. My next favorite musician of all time, Brian Fallon, who so if you know the Gaslight Anthem, he is the singer for the Gaslight Anthem, but he also has a solo career and he's got a few albums by himself.
I thought you were going to say Nick Cave.
The scene where Chad and Tara are sitting on the bed and they're like about to kiss, and then what's her name? Olivia? Quinn. And then Quinn walks in and they get interrupted. There's a song playing that's like in the background, and it's a Brian Fallon song. And I was like, I can't believe that this song is in here. Like,
really?
I fucking love it so much. You have stolen my heart. And then I'm like, okay, it's so cool that it's just like in the background. But I couldn't pay attention to what they were saying because I was so excited that this song was in there.
Well, Zach,
and then
they reveal the killer in that scene. You missed it.
I missed it.
You weren't paying attention.
I missed it.
I'm just kidding.
But like, it's just on in the background, and I was like, that's so cool. But then it like gets bigger and takes over. This, the music takes over, and I was like,
that's so funny.
My God, I was just like so giddy.
That's great.
Anyways, that's all.
Cool.
It's a good song. It's a really good song.
It is. Yeah, it is.
How did you feel about Tara and Chad when in their budding relationship? Did it feel right to you guys?
Yeah,
It's fine.
Sure.
It's fine.
My only
trauma bonds.
exactly. In Scream 5, it was established in an original draft, or at least an earlier draft, that Tara is bisexual, and she and Amber kind of had a thing, which you could kind of see.
Okay, yeah.
You can kind of also just read it as friends in the.
Well,
in the
she had her
version we got.
inhaler at her house.
Yeah, like there was an intimacy
like,
there.
who just like leaves an inhaler at a friend's house?
Exactly. Exactly. And it was in the script that they were supposed to be romantically involved.
Okay.
That's how I read it, is like she got so close because she wanted to be at the hospital and she's super protective over her and everything. I read that they were in a relationship. They just didn't explicitly say it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I guess you could read it even though they don't say it. You know, and and then when you know it was kind of like intended, it's sort of like, okay, I could just doesn't, I guess, need to be said at that point.
But no, their relationship I thought was good. It felt natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
Everyone
is why
really loves Jenna Ortega, but I love the girl who plays Sam.
Melissa Barrera, like, so I feel so bad. She was, she was criticized by some people for her performance in part 5, which, it's subjective, to each their own.
Yeah.
You either like it or you don't. But I would almost say, like, objectively, she was great in this movie.
Yeah,
I just feel like she had so much depth and so much to work with and so much complexities that I just thought she was really... Also to be in the shadow of, inevitably, of, like, Sidney Prescott,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to have to carry that, like, how do we do this? And then to make her not only the main character, but, like, she has this kind of, like, for lack of a better term, like a bloodlust, or at least a blood drive. Just not the right.
She's putting on a blood drive,
but just like what an interesting character.
Yeah,
like so original and unique. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So overall, Scream 6, 2 thumbs up.
Pretty good.
I loved it. I loved it. Yeah.
2 thumbs up.
Can I say my one quote unquote criticism?
No, I had criticisms. Go ahead.
My one subjective note that I think might have helped, and I capitalize might, because the reveal with the killers has, the first time we have 3 killers. Like, how cool! Like, awesome, love it, great, looks great, visually it's cool, narratively it's interesting. But I think what might have helped is if they had at least one of the kids a little less enthusiastic about killing and maybe felt like, fuck, like I'm in this because I have to be.
Right.
They still do. They still kill. They still carry on. But like maybe a little bit feel a little more broken about it.
It would make sense. Like they lived with those people for 6 months already. Like they would have had some sort of
and to be so removed from humanity,
and then just like turn like at night.
It's one thing to have revenge, but to just like switch on and off between like good and bad guy, like felt a little hard to digest, even for a Scream movie. Because there was a moment where, specifically Ethan, I think I would have, they kind of hinted at it where, and I noticed this again the second time, where Detective Bailey is talking about Richie, and he's like, you have a special bond with your firstborn son. And it cuts to Ethan. And I was like,
and he's like, I love you, Dad.
Yeah. But I almost wish they pushed further.
I'll do anything for you,
maybe
Daddy.
Even gave him less to say.
I'm your only son now.
Yeah. Because I was like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That is like, play with that. Have Detective Bailey like screaming at him, like, kill her, like, do it, like that.
And then Ethan stabs
all of a
him.
sudden it's not like, exactly. Like, give us that. I want a little bit more like twist on twist on twist.
And then Sam and Tara just kind of like Homer Simpson into the weeds. They just like back up and like walk away, and they're
we
like
done
family
here?
feuding with each other, like stabbing
Yeah, like
each
we'll
other.
let them take care
Would
of
have
it.
been pretty.
And Steve Harvey
interesting.
comes out.
Oh, and I'm not gonna lie, I did love having Kirby back.
Yeah,
I would
did.
argue
That was fun.
MVP of the movie outside
she
of
was
like
great.
the core four.
Yeah.
She could have been a throwaway cameo or just like fan service. I thought she had the best intro, some of the best lines. She was an active participant in everything that
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
She pushed the story along. She got
Yeah.
the final kill, and she had one of the coolest lines when she's like, "I saw that in a scary movie once." Like, oh
Yeah.
my god, like it's just good.
So, thinking about this a little bit more on Kirby,
Mhm.
sorry, this baby has pooped, and so
Oh,
a little
me too.
upset.
And
Right.
A little upset.
Everybody poops.
the podcast debut of my lovely daughter.
And poop.
Yeah.
And of poop.
So, why didn't Kirby know that Detective Bailey was Richie Kirsch's dad? And why
Well,
was
It's a great question.
Detective Bailey put on a Ghostface case?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He says something about, there's so much to unpack. Because if you can believe past the fact that, like, he could get away with them not realizing that he was Richie's dad in the first place, which is like, okay. But then for him to, like, fake an identity, which is impossible. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And
It's
see,
hard-
that's
it's
why
really
I kind of
hard.
think they need to go a different direction than the family
Right.
revenge route, because it's just getting,
Convoluted.
it's too complicated now, too convoluted. It just needs to kind of go away.
Well, Zach, I agree.
Sam needs to become the killer.
She do.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm. You need to do something with that, even if it isn't like as. Even
I mean,
if
she
you
could be
play
like
with that a little bit
protecting
more.
Tara the entire time.
Exactly. Like there's like a twist on her being the killer, because
Mm-hmm.
Zach, to that point, it's like Scream 5 is technically it's related to Sydney, but really it's its own thing. It's not relatives. It's just people
Right.
who are like obsessed with the stab movies. Part 6 is the family element. Okay, sure. Part 7 needs to go a different direction, because then that will make this trilogy feel like a very unique kind of unit that kind of plays is like a grab bag of the franchise. Because I agree, it's at this point it's like, okay, we've seen it, but if that was what you're giving us just for this generation, I can handle that. But leave it there.
Yeah.
At least
they need
that's
to
where-
go, they need to pull a Halloween Ends and just kind of
100% pure pivot,
Mm-hmm.
new take on it. I was thinking about where the franchise is going to go and what they were going to riff on. And this is pure prediction based on nothing at all. But I think it would be interesting since they introduced, we've had horror movie slashers, sequels, trilogies, remakes, requels, and franchises. I thought it'd be interesting since they introduced franchises. I was like, well, what else is there that's like in the horror lexicon that is so prevalent that you could do a whole movie riffing on it? And I was like, oh, cinematic extended universes. You even have like,
oh my God,
beyond the MCU, you have like Conjuring. So I was like, well, how do you tell that story? And I'm not going to pretend I've like tried to map out a story, but I feel like there is something where like, what is the Scream version of the extended universe? And I was like, oh, you have to have like individual killers kind of scattered, either like around the country or even around the world. So then I was thinking, part 7, where do you set part 7? It could be on a trip to like Europe. You could even do like a riff on like American Werewolf in London, where you have like these characters doing a trip to where they're going to backpack through Europe, and there's still Ghostface. And the reason why Ghostface is there is because there's this like kind of commentary on expanded universes where like it's no longer enough to just be like a franchise. It needs to expand, it needs to grow. And there were a lot of rumors that part 6 was going to play with cults, like the cult of Ghostface.
Yeah.
I was like, that's where you open it up if you wanted to play with like really growing the franchise, but also adding like that social commentary. So that's all I have to say about that.
Part of that goes back to I don't want to see a family member do this again, because every movie you're getting that where they're like, it's not enough to just do this. You got to do this. And then the next one, it's like, it's not enough to just show you this. You got to really go for this. And I like your idea, but I don't want that anymore, Danny. I don't want it.
But do you think a Scream movie
I want Ghostface
can get away
to be a fucking ghost, or I want him to fucking have tentacles? I don't fucking know. I want something.
Well, here's the alternate take. If they don't go the big move, they go reverse, and the next movie is a riff on another horror staple, which is the prequel, which is we go back to the past and we pull things from the past that ultimately kind of haunt the future. And there could be like a clever way to make a very intimate Scream 7.
I mean, we also already have that with Sam.
But we don't know about her mother. They have talked about her mother in part 6 and 7, or 5 and 6, and we have not. And she could be the bridge to the past, which could help us play if they wanted to do that. Because ultimately, they are going to have a commentary. They always have like that specific title, like this is about requels, this is about remakes. They are going to have something. So if they wanted to bring the mother into it and delve into the past, prequels could be a fun way to do that.
And in part 6, when Sam is talking about her mom to Gail in the theater there, and they're talking about loss and everything, and they play Dewey's theme, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
here we go again. Here come the waterworks again.
The water, all right. Well, I think it's fair to say that Dewey is a great place to end things on.
Yeah, because he's dead.
Because I won't stop talking, Casey. So I'm trying to stop myself right now.
We could go on and on. So we are all in agreement. Scream 6, A+. Were there things that we would have changed, could have done without? Yes, but those things did not stop us from enjoying this movie fully.
Yeah.
No, sir.
So until part 7 comes out and we have to do our second annual Screamathon, which is now 6 movies, you won't hear us talk about Scream.
That's not true. Danny talks about Scream all the time.
All right, you heard it here, folks. I promise I will not mention Scream until Scream 7 comes out.
Danny, you cannot make a promise like that.
Is this Scout's honor where you hold the 2 fingers, or is it crossed?
That's Scout's honor.
All right, well, I'm going to cross
Cross
Scout's
means you're
honor.
lying. Oh, okay.
Well, thank you to our special guests, I will say, Nina and Little Baby.
Little Baby.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us.
Fun as always.
Little Baby.
And that's it. Now go meet some monsters.